Today we'll be talking about violence. Actually, NVR was born as a nonviolent way of resisting violence, this in the social political field. And this was our first concern also when we started applying NVR to families and then to schools. As you will see in our implementation of NVR to violence, all of the principles that we have described up to now come together. And they come together in a especially effective way so that you can see this as a summing up of everything that we have been teaching. Okay. There is an expression that is very frequently used concerning violence, and that is the expression of zero tolerance. Okay, zero tolerance is a slogan that is developed and became very popular, particularly in schools, and they say, here we have zero tolerance. And somehow, okay, this principle turns out to be problematic. Why problematic? Because if you take it completely seriously, in the end, you mean that you're going to expel any child that commits any act of violence, small or big. Zero tolerance means something absolutely total. And there has been a lot of research on this issue of zero tolerance. There has a 10-year follow-up by the school system in the US on the effects of zero tolerance. And the general conclusion is that as a policy, as a master policy, it has failed and failed miserably, both in the individual school, to say nothing of the whole system, because what you're doing, you're pushing kids out of school and getting them into what? Into other schools, into other special schools, or completely out of the school system. So that zero tolerance is actually an empty slogan in the end. The question is whether there is an alternative to zero tolerance, because there's a good reason. Why is this principle so appealing? It's because we need a sense of full commitment against violence. And actually, full commitment is a much better slogan than zero tolerance. Now we are going to talk to you about what does it mean, this full commitment of NVR to oppose, to resist violence by all our means. First of all, it is a commitment to transparency. Okay, we're not going to hide violence. We're not going to keep it secret anymore. Okay, we're not going to do all kinds of deals with the violent person or kid. Okay, this commitment to transparency is central. Okay, so we are now beginning, okay, this change, the substitution of the idea of zero tolerance by a positive, also, okay, very firm, very engaging alternative. The second element of full commitment is full commitment to victim protection. This comes before anything else. Okay, we have to think about this, okay? Did I do everything in my power to protect the victim? Did I show this to the victim? Did I show this clearly, okay, to the potential perpetrator? Did I show this also to the rest of the class? Because everybody must know that the victim is protected. Okay, we should know that the discretion, the attempt to solve issues of violence by a kind of horse deal, okay, if you do this, again, I won't tell it to the principal, or I won't tell it to you. It's very, very damaging, extremely damaging, because at the end, it means that you, as an authority person, as a teacher, as a parent, you're collaborating with violence, okay? So that in the end, this threat of keeping things enclosed under the veil of secrecy is one of the most destructive reactions that you can imagine to violence. Then This idea of full commitment has a another element that stands in absolute contrast to the idea of zero tolerance is that we are also committed to do everything possible to reintegrate the perpetrator into the community, be it the community of the family, the community of the class. Okay, the perpetrator in some ways is placing him or herself outside of the community, as if he's saying, okay, the laws of this community are my laws. Okay, this respects all the other laws, all the other rights. Okay, so there is this placement of the perpetrator outside, out of the boundaries of this community. So in our full commitment, we commit ourselves to a very serious attempt to reintegrate the perpetrator or the potential perpetrator in the community, be it of the family, to say to him and to show to him, now you're a full member, you're one of us in all possible senses. Now let us see how we can follow this through, how this is implemented. First of all, we have to engage when we are working with parents. We have to engage the parents to full commitment. So the first thing is to explain about nonviolent resistance, that nonviolent resistance is probably the most effective means against violence of all kinds that was ever developed. Okay, the names of Gandhi and Martin Luther King are known to everybody. What is not known to everybody is perhaps the wide impact of nonviolent resistance. Okay, Gandhi and Martin Luther King are only the best known exponents, but there are innumerable, okay, many examples of communities that succeeded in regaining, okay, their strength, okay, their sense of capacity, their efficacy. So we are going to give you now means to counter violence, to resist violence, to oppose violence, to stop violence, which are extremely, okay, efficient. Okay, and we are going to give you strength. This will help reinstitute your standing as parents. Very clear, must be said, you're going to become strong, because many times they think, well, if I don't hit back, I'm being weak. Okay, it's very important. No, you're going to be stronger than you ever thought possible. But stronger by completely non-violent means if you give up the non-violence, you're going to give up strength. You're going to become vulnerable to criticism, okay, vulnerable to attacks. Okay, so no, if you stick to nonviolent resistance, you'll be stronger than you ever thought imaginable. This is something that we tell also to teachers. Then, okay, when we engage parents to full commitment, must be absolutely clear that countering violence, resisting violence is the highest priority. You cannot give another objective a higher priority than countering violence, because if you give another objective a higher priority, you will be reducing the chances that you will achieve also this other objective. Because when you allow violence to continue, you're actually losing your status as a leader, as a guide, as a parent, as a teacher. Okay, children who see that you are not fighting violence will not respect you. This is always in any group, okay, in the whole history of humanity. In any group, the person who leads the group has a full commitment to protect the members of the group against violence. If the leader is not able or, okay, relinquishes this duty in favor of other goals like, okay, harmony, like keeping the name of this child, okay, safe and so on, then you're going to lose your position as a leader of this community. Okay, the other members of the community will say, he doesn't protect us. Okay, if he doesn't protect us, there's something wrong here in this leadership. Then it is important to talk to the parents about this. Okay, parents say, no, if he's a good student, then okay, he has outbursts. Okay, we'll accept that. That's a very bad idea. Okay, that's a very bad idea. Nothing should have higher priority, okay, than combating violence. This is major. You see, we are developing an alternative to zero tolerance that is completely engaging, but completely engaging in a very positive way. Then, okay, we tell the parents, we explain to the parents that resisting violence actually is the only chance for the child to fully develop his own self-control. Okay? Actually, we say to parents, the greatest hope of your child is that you will turn, okay, the struggle against violence, the fight against violence into your highest priority. Turning this into your highest priority, okay, will give your child a future, okay, your violent child a future. Will give him a chance. And then he will also develop his self-control. If you don't do it, okay, he will develop his self-discontrol. Okay, he'll understand that the more he does not control himself, the more power he has, and this will be, of course, extremely damaging for his development. Then, okay, full commitment. We're engaging the parents to full commitment. We must make it clear to them that they must commit absolutely to fighting violence by nonviolent means. Okay, that they must, okay, control themselves, come what may, but they must not hit back. Everything should be done, but not if they have to bite their lips, to bite their tongue, they do it. You have to commit to nonviolence. The moment, okay, you abjure this commitment to nonviolence, you are actually destroying the base of your whole endeavor. Okay, so this commit. Now, the moment we create transparency, the moment we bring in supporters, the commitment to nonviolence becomes, okay, much safer, much more steady, much secure. Transparency is a fantastic break against impulsiveness. Okay, the parents will know that they're getting support, but they are also being seen. Okay, so those are some of the reasons why discretion, trying to keep violence, okay, secret, is such a trap. Okay, it's a terrible trap. It hurts the parents, it hurts the perpetrator, it hurts the victim, it hurts the whole family. Okay, we'll understand how this is in a school, for instance. Okay, but when we bring in supporters, we've already told this, but we have to come back. It's now summing up. The summing up of NVR and the issue of violence is very important. So forgive me if there is some repetition. Okay, the message that the parents give the violent child is we'll no longer be helpless and anonymous victims or witnesses of violence. Okay, this is the thing. We have to keep it in mind. We'll react. It is not always that we'll succeed in controlling violence altogether, but we'll fight violence decidedly. Okay, we'll struggle against it. We'll resist it. It's different. Okay, so what do I do if the child continues being violent? Okay, you continue to struggle against violence. You continue to fight violence non-violently. It's a process that takes time. It is not enough just to declare this and it happens. Okay, so you are committing to your own fight against violence and not to the immediate disappearance of violence. You can't commit to that. You don't have control over that, but you have control over your attitude, over your acts. Okay, so this message is very important. That's what we'll do. We'll no longer be helpless and anonymous victims or witnesses of violence. So violence is not a private. The child, okay, the violence. Why did you tell those people about my things? How dare you? No, violence is not a private issue. Okay, violence has no privacy rights. Violence is something that concerns us all. Okay, so this is very important also to keep in mind. There are no privacy rights about violence, absolutely. Then there's the question, and we've talked about it, now I'll come back to it, how to involve supporters. And what supporters are asked to do. Of course, it's not everybody, won't tell everybody, but you have a group of supporters. You create a we, okay, a community of a togetherness, a community of belonging also, and those people are updated, and those people are asked to talk to the child. That's why it is very important to document each violent incident. There was a violent incident against a child, against a parent, against another classmate. Okay, there was a violent, then you document it, you write it down, and you share it with the supporters. Okay, and you tell the child, I'm not keeping this secret. I'm sharing this with all the people who are willing to help us and to help you stop this violence. So this is documentation and updating of the supporters, central issue, creating a written documentation, short one, but clear. Okay, not generalized. Okay, this is very important. Okay, violent events should be documented and the supporters should know about it. Okay, get a clear picture of what happened. And then the supporters are asked to come to the house or to talk to the child, sometimes by phone, sometimes by mail. But the best thing is that if one or two supporters come to the home and talk to the child and show by their presence that they are part of this commitment to fight violence, to oppose violence, to resist violence. Okay, this is quite central. Getting people to come to the house and talk to the child, and they talk to the child in a supportive way. Okay, they give him that message: we care about you, we believe in your capacity to overcome that. Okay, and they're also willing to help, but this has to stop. This is violence. They call it violence. This has to stop. Okay, you can't beat up your brother. You can't beat up your sister. Okay, you can kick your mother. You cannot break objects like that. You cannot vandalize the house. You cannot do that. But I believe that you can do it well, that you can overcome. Okay, we're connecting support with resistance, support with resistance. And one important thing that the supporter says, I've already stressed it, but there's never stressing it enough. Okay, I'm very much keen on finding a honorable solution, a solution in which your self-respect is maintained, a solution in which you feel that you are not just humiliating himself, but on the contrary, okay, that you can do it with pride. And I'll help you. I'm willing to do it together with you. I'm willing to stand at your side when you do that. This emphasis on a honorable solution is highly important. It already hints at the issue of reintegration. Okay, so the way, okay, there is first of all this manifestation of resistance, okay, this effect of publicity, of transparency. This is a very powerful measure, okay, of resistance, much better than any punishment, by far stronger than any punishment. But now comes the issue of reparation, because reparation is actually the key to reintegration. Reparation is also the key for the child's development of a kind of sensitivity to the other's pain. Reparation has a lot to do with belongingness. Okay, so it's important that the supporters, the parents also say to the child, hey, look, has to be a reparation. There will be amends. Okay, there is a rule in society, a universal rule. Okay, you damaged, you broke it, you fix it. You offended, you do some reparation for it. And we are responsible for that. Okay, apology is an element in reparation. The child can and should be helped with the apology. It's not necessary and it's not a good idea to demand you apologize. Okay, or ask him to forgive you, say that you're sorry. Bad idea, especially when you say that in the heat of the moment. Say that you're sorry, very bad idea. Most children then, okay, either won't say or won't mean it. Okay, so you don't do it. Okay, well, think about how you apologize. We're willing to help you do that. Okay, but we'll think it takes time. Apology takes time, and it should take time. Apology that's made in the heat of the moment is not sincere. Okay. Now, I say very often, okay, and it takes a while to understand it. Reparation should be a collective undertaking. Okay, the child who did the damage, who attacked, who vandalized, who beat another child up, okay, is not supposed to do the whole act of reparation on his own. If there is this demand that he should do the act of reparation completely alone, he will often feel unable to do it. I cannot do it. Okay, how can I wipe out what I did? It's impossible. Okay, so reparation is actually always had an element of a collective undertaking. Now, I want to tell you, make a small historical digression. Okay, there was a very interesting uh, custom in the Middle Ages that was brought in by the German tribes that invaded the Roman Empire. Okay, the Goths and the Visigoths, all of those. And in the laws, okay, there is a document about the Goths or Visigoths law. I don't remember which one it was. It was absolute clear that if you hurt somebody from a different family, from a different group, or if you killed somebody from a different group, you owe reparation. Okay? You owe reparation for that. They even had a table of reparations, okay, for breaking an arm, for breaking a leg, for breaking the head, or for killing. Okay, they even had that. But the reparation was the obligation of the clan, okay, not of the perpetrator alone. Okay, so long as the clan did not take up this duty to reparation, the other clan had the right to do vengeance, to revenge itself on anybody from this clan. So it was a we thing. Okay? We do reparation towards the victim and towards the victim's clan. So it is always a we thing. Why? There is a deep understanding that the individual by himself is probably unable to do full reparation. There is also such an understanding in the world religions. Okay, the whole idea, let's say in Christianity, the whole idea of the self-sacrifice of Jesus Christ is the sinner is not able to do reparation alone for his own sin. He needs help. So he gets help from God. Okay, in the Jewish religion, in Judaism, okay, when there is the Yom Kippur prayer for forgiveness of our sins, is always of our sins. And there is a sentence in the prayer book, in the Yom Kippur book, that says, I, the sinner, okay, cannot do reparation on my own. It would be too much. I would be overwhelmed by it. My prayer as an individual is too small. It is only by being a part of the whole community of Israel, okay, the Jewish community, the community of the prayers, that I can do it. It's part of this we. This is a very deep thing, okay? When we think about those Germanic laws, we may think, well, those are primitive clans, but this is no primitive at all. Okay, the individual needs help in order to do reparation as part of a collective. That's why when the parents say, we'll help you do this. Why will we help you do this? Okay, apologize and do reparation because we are part of it. Okay, you break something, we are responsible. We are responsible for you. And we also want to help you. You don't want you to feel that you're humiliating yourself. We'll be at your side. We'll be talking together about this. Okay, we'll be signing together the letter of apology. Okay, so this we thing is extremely important. Then in order to help the child accept this idea of the process of reparation, we need time. The child has to be able to think about it. He has to have his anger cool down. Okay, he has to feel that different people are involved in this and offering him. Little by little, he will start if we give it time. And if we give it this collective approach to reparation, he will start seeing this as an opportunity. And many times the parents will say, okay, you're not willing to do reparation. We're not willing to do amends. Well, we owe it to them. We have to do it. And we'll do it. We'll do it also in your name because you're part of the family. And here it is about the self-respect of this whole family. Okay, we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to you, and we owe it to them that we do this act of reparation. As I said already, when I describe reparation among the tools of NVR, okay, then the child, okay, would be, okay, expected to contribute willingly, voluntarily, or not voluntarily. Okay, and the supporters play a very important, okay, part in this, saying, look, okay, there's no alternative. Okay, the parents have to do reparation, but you also owe your participation. And if you don't want to do it voluntarily, okay, so they'll take things from you, from your savings, okay, because you have to participate. But if you participate in it voluntarily, then I'll help you and also help you to get a good deal. This is definitely positive, and legitimate also. Okay, there's nothing to do with reinforcing the child's bad behavior. No. Okay. Now, this is this for the fact that the violent episode, okay, any violence, okay, does not concern only the perpetrator. Okay, it is impossible for the teacher to make a deal with the perpetrator. Okay, if you do so and so, then it's okay. We'll keep it secret between. Now, any event of violence in a school concerns four parties. Concerns the status of the teacher. I've already said the teacher is the leader of the class, okay, officially. Sometimes he succeeds also in being the leader of the class in an interpersonal sense. Sometimes he doesn't. Okay, the question whether a teacher succeeds in really maintaining his status, being accepted as the leader of the class, has a lot to do with the issue of violence. A teacher who, for instance, gets wind of a violent episode and, okay, sweeps it under the carpet, okay, or turns his head in another direction, or ignores it, or does a kind of a secret horse deal with the perpetrator, he will lose his standing as the leader of the class invariably. Okay, the kids will say, no, okay, he's only the teacher. There's a big difference being he's only the teacher, and even then, okay, he will lose his respect as a person who has something to say to this community of the class. Then, of course, every violent act has to do with the perpetrator, not only in the sense of punishing the perpetrator, but also in the sense of the relationship between the perpetrator and the class community. Okay, by his act of violence, or vandalism, or bullying, okay, the perpetrator is standing aside the community of the class. Sometimes he's creating his own community in which, okay, I am the boss and I have a number of kids that go after me. But in any case, okay, there is a breach between the perpetrator and the school community by his very act of violence. Every child that commits violence is putting himself aside in some sense. Okay, so okay, the way we manage violence affects not only the acts of violence themselves, but also, okay, the question of whether the perpetrator belongs again or can be reintegrated into the class community. Okay, the way we address violence also has a deep meaning for the victim, because if we don't deal with violence, okay, the victim is getting a message that is absolutely despairing. Actually, if we don't deal with the violence, we are leaving the victim at the mercy of the bullies or the perpetrators, and the only option left to the victim will then be to submit. And this is terrible. Or to withdraw completely, okay? Or to commit suicide, okay? So that the child who doesn't get the message of protection, the open message of protection, is not only being beaten up, he's also being left to his fate in a world that he now perceives as completely hostile. Now, addressing violence has such a meaning for the whole class community, because if the class cannot see that the teacher is really addressing violence directly, okay, with transparency, openly, decidedly, with full commitment, can then the glue that holds the class community together will start to dissolve. It would be each for himself. And many kids will get the temptation to join the bullies because there is no longer this glue, the loyalty to each other. We are each for each other. So there is a very profound damage to the whole atmosphere of the class. So now let us see an example of how in a class a teacher deals with a violent incident, and it's in stages. We'll show how this is openly and in stages. We'll give you all of those open communications. The class example is important for us to understand. The way we do it in families is very similar, and this course has mainly to do with families, but somehow there's a lot of clarity in the school examples. So the teacher now comes before the class and says, we've received notice about a violent incident which the study has beaten up. I wrote this wrongly. Beaten up. Beaten another student and threatened that he'll do it again. Not biting. We cannot and shall not tolerate violence. We shall resist the violence by all means in our power. We'll protect the student that was attacked, and will take steps aiming at reparation for the damage that was inflicted on the student and on the whole class community. We'll keep you informed on all our steps. What you're doing is this is a public announcement. Public announcement, if it is a waiter example, a special example of bullying in which various kids were attacked, then it would be a good idea for the teacher to make this announcement before the class, not alone. But with another teacher, the school director standing at her side or at his side, and then she will do the announcement, but these others are representing, the we that have decided to fight against violence with full commitment. So this is the first stage. We are already, getting an important, the curiosity, the class is seeing that we mean business, but it has to see that we really take those steps, that it's not just an empty announcement. So here, after a few days, sometimes a week, the teacher comes to the class again and says, I want to inform you about the actions we've undertaken regarding the violent incident that I reported to you. We've put together a group of teachers that are considering various possible responses. The children in the class must know that this is not an individual undertaking, but the teacher is part of a we that's fighting violence or bullying. We've informed the parents of both children and have discussed with them a number of measures. First of all, we have taken care to protect the attacked child. He now has the telephone number of different people that he can contact if anything happens or if he feels threatened. You see, the names are not named. Many kids in the class will know who this is about, maybe all of the kids in the class, but we don't have to name the names. It is not necessary. Sometimes this kind of announcement is also published in the whole school if the bigger events. The child who attacked him is now under close observation. You remember that keeping a child under observation, intensifying vigilant care is a very important reaction, much more than a sanction. During the next 2 weeks, he will stay at school for 20 minutes after the end of classes to allow the other child to go home in complete safety. During the next 2 weeks. We took care to have him accompaniment that the victim, to have him accompanied in the way to school and back by a group of kids whom he trusts. The parents of both children have been updated and have given their full support to this measure. We're showing to the kids how we are doing and handling this at different levels. Now, the status of the teacher is changing. She is showing herself to be the leader of this class that is able and responsible for protecting them. Now, stage 3. Okay, I want to report maybe a week later, a few days later, I want to report to you further about what happened regarding the violent episode of 2 weeks ago. With the help of his parents, the attacker apologized before the other child and his parents. Okay, the apology is, as we know, a collective event. So he does it with the help of his parents and sometimes with the help of other support. I had a touching conversation with the parents of the attacked child. They expressed their full approval of the way we're managing the incident. The child who performed the aggressive act was given two options to choose from. A, either he would be accompanied during classes and breaks by a parent or grandparent. Yeah, this is serious, huh? Sometimes you do it. Or B, he would come 3 times a week for the next 3 weeks after school to do work for the school's community as reparation. He chose the second option. Of course, he's no idiot. Okay, it's much better to do that. And he has already met with the librarian and the janitor to plan for those activities. Now comes the final, element. We're not angry and hold no grudge against it. We now see him as a regular student in his class with all the rights and duties. We see the incident as closed. Okay, this ability of the teacher to say, we see the incident as closed. Okay, she has the key to open an incident and the key to close the incident. This is very important. There's a lot of power in having the key to open an incident or closing an incident. Okay, so that's what she's doing. Like St. Peter, he has the keys to heaven, to open and to close. Okay, you don't come in, you come in. Okay, so that we see the incident as closed. This is enormous because and it ends with reintegration. Okay, we want now to give you an example of a reparation event in a school in which the perpetrator is unknown, because reparation is something that can be done by a community or by a family together, and it has deep meaning for the sense of belonging, for the sense of community. Okay, the staff of a high school discovered that a student had urinated on the vice principal's door. The humiliating act sparked tremendous anger and helplessness. The identity of the culprit was unknown, and the principal and vice principal thought it wasn't likely to be found in an inquiry. It seemed as if there was no course for a strong and deterring punishment. You don't know who to punish. The thing in terms of our program, which had been introduced to the school that year, opened the way to meaningful action. The principal decided not to call in the cleaning crew just yet, but to leave the shameful stain, which had by then dried up where it was, that yellow urine stain. The inner team that led the program, we constitute the team that is responsible for the program in any school in which we introduced a new authority. So the leading team that led the program of NVR in the school or new authority went over the list of all of the potential support parties in the school and the community. Now we are creating a larger we, the participative community. The relevant parties included teachers, all teachers, representatives of the school board, the head of the informal education center of the community, and the mayor. There was no intention to recruit them all, but they certainly could be informed. The wide reporting was meant to amplify the impact of the planned deportation. We found this, we are dealing with it, we're doing a communal reparation act, whose goal is to show that the whole school stands behind the vice principal, the vice director of the school, and that we are together against this infamous act. At the preliminary discussion with all the seniors, it was decided to send all of these parties a description of the incident and an announcement that a reparation act was planned for the following day. You see, we are creating now an event, a happening, a reparation. At 8 a.m. the next day, another meeting took place in the principal's office with administrators of the community, a student council representative, a teacher representative, the chair of the parents' community, and the janitor. You may wonder, this is because of a little pissing on the wall, because this is an opportunity. Okay, it could be also a big bullying event and we'll do something like that, or a big vandalistic event and we'll do something like that. The principal described the offensive incident. The vice president described her feelings about the violent act, which was supposedly directed at her, and then all the participants expressed their opinion in a brief round. Everyone expressed strong aversion at the act, but there was also some criticism of the system's powerlessness, a call for punishment, a proposal to launch a thorough investigation to find the culprit, and more. Okay, that's the immediate answer. We have to find. Okay, but in such a case, chances are very low that we'll find the culprit. Okay, then the principal brought up the idea that had been carefully planned already. Okay, we can get this out now. At the time, all the participants would write a brief statement together to express their aversion to the repulsive act. The formula agreed upon was this. Okay, dear students, yesterday an unfortunate event occurred that concerned us all. Somebody urinated on the vice principal's door. We gather here with the student representative, or parents representative, faculty representatives, and the general to protest the offensive behavior together. We view this as an offense not only against the vice principal, but all of us. Now we are planning to act to right the wrong. If anyone would like to join the protest and reparation we are initiating, they are welcome. This is not a punitive act because we have no idea who did it, but a positive act that will restore the honor, self-respect, and feeling of belonging to the entire school community. Then all the participants in this reunion, okay, there were about 12, went on a round of all the classrooms. They read the statement and asked for 2 volunteers from each class. The students who volunteered joined the staff in cleaning the dry stain and the vice principal's office. The students wrote on a board that they love her and are all on her side, disgusted by the revolting act. One of the teachers filmed it with her phone. You can just imagine how the perpetrator is feeling in all of this. He's saying nothing. Okay, he's keeping to his own. Maybe somebody can see by his emotional reactions. Okay, but it's not the goal. Okay, it's not to find or to divulge. Okay, at the end of the Reparation Act, the students returned to their classrooms, and some of the staff returned to the principal's office. Gone were the demoralization and helplessness that prevailed the day before. The principal sent a message to all of the parents, all of the students, and all the community parties, okay, that were involved or updated about the process in the classrooms. The message was signed by all of the different partners. A link to the video was attached to the message so that everyone could feel not only informed, but also as partners in the Reparation Act. Okay? This is an act of community building. This is an act of nonviolent resistance. It's a very, very powerful act. It can be used against any episode of vandalism or joint episode of bullying. Okay, but vandalism is very often an anonymous thing. You don't know. Then you do a collective act against vandalism. You create a community spirit. Okay, this is the spirit of NVR. It's very important for me to do this because we've been talking about families. But NVR is something that has to do with whole community. It was invented in community. It was developed in communities. So we translated it into families. And then we implemented it in schools. And now we have also community programs. We're giving back, but we create communities by NVR. Thank you very much.